Alrighty. Cool. So today we'll talk about two different parts. The first part, we will talk about behavioral differences that we have in our I/O stack and how we will deal with that across .NET Framework and .NET Core, as well as across operating systems. And in the second half, we will have a demo for the work that has been done to do a managed rewrite of ILDASM. So I guess you should probably get started and just walk us through the differences and what you're proposing, what we should do there.
All right. Well, I've got 5 issues. 2 sets of them are fairly similar. Like this one here has to do with access time, write time, and creation time for directory and for file, or directory and directory info, and then file and file info. Essentially, on Windows right now, in the desktop and the Windows Core, whenever you try to get one of these attributes from a file that doesn't exist, it'll return from file time of 0. So it doesn't throw an exception or anything like that. And then on the Unix core, we have it throwing an exception. So the question is, should we keep this behavior that's already there, where it returns essentially invalid data, or should we have it throw an exception and make it a breaking change?
That makes sense.
So what was the rationale for it returning 0? Was it because the was it like an existence check thing where we didn't want to disclose that the file didn't exist for some like partial trust scenario back in the day, or?
I suppose so. I didn't find any comments anywhere saying why there was this behavior.
Because like we do that in some places. We would treat file not found. We would coalesce non-existent files to like empty files so people couldn't.
Except if you return 0, it's quite easy to tell that it's bogus data.
Yeah, I guess it's true.
Therefore the file doesn't exist.
Does the documentation mention anything about this?
I did not find anything looking through it.
You mean like MSDN?
Yeah. Which one?
Oh yeah, it's on MSDN.
Directory dot access.
Was the
First thing that showed up is that PR.
what was the first API?
Directory.
And what method was that? Get access time, or what was it? Creation time?
Yeah, let's do. They'll do the right things.
We already return a bogus one if the path does not exist. If you look at remarks, the second thing, if the directory described does not exist, the method returns midnight.
Interesting.
So you kind of did document this.
I mean, as a general principle, I think, unless there's good reasons, I wouldn't deviate from full framework. I would just make sure we have the same behavior. And it seems you still have that on Windows, right? So
It's just on Unix that it throws an exception.
Yeah.
Could we make it not throw?
Sure, yeah. We could just have it do the same thing here.
It seems easier to change
Yeah.
the Unix behavior then.
And since we kind of already have this documented behavior already.
Or we could consider just
Going in all cases.
having a difference between
What?
desktop and core CLR.
That will be very hard if you write libraries that run on both, right? I mean, the question is how much code relies on that behavior, right? And that's hard to tell.
But I think people wouldn't expect to throw an exception if the path not found. Now they'll be getting an exception. So they wouldn't have had a try-catch around that usually because we would never document this would throw in this case.
It's true, but I mean, chances are if the file directory doesn't exist and it doesn't throw that their code is broken without them even knowing it. I wouldn't be surprised if many people don't even handle the case that it returns midnight. They just continue with whatever then goes.
Yes, but again, they continue, right? So they have some.
No, it is a breaking change for sure. The question is just like, is the code already broken or not? Because chances are, like, you're just broken in a different way now. You're just getting an exception where previously you didn't.
Well, yeah, but you could have handled that case without the try catch, is what I'm thinking. You could just
True.
check the 8 and
Well, I'm not arguing that you cannot write exact correct code. All I'm saying is the question is how many apps in the world actually did handle that case.
Of the 0.
Yes. And not just take this output and then feed it in the computation and do something bogus with that. And that's hard to tell by just without actually looking at real apps. Static data doesn't really help with that.
And if you write a portable library, you still can catch exception and then also check for these conditions.
True. Yeah, it's true. You can still write portable code. It's just you have to. It becomes harder.
But
I mean, if we were to change the behavior, like, I think that we should decide on what the correct behavior is. Is it this, or is it throwing an exception? If we think that throwing an exception is the right thing, then keep the behavior on Linux, change the Windows behavior, and then start moving, like bring that change back to the desktop under a cork so that the platform moves to a consistent state. Like, we can't end up in a place where on some platforms we throw, on some platforms we return 0, and we go, oh, well, you can just like write this convoluted thing that will let you paper over the differences. Like,
I agree. And also, like, if we decide that throwing would be the correct behavior, we also kind of need to decide how bad is the current behavior. Like, is it worth fixing? But it might be, because the current behavior, unless we are missing some good reason, is so wacky.
But it seems to me the higher order bit was you need consistency between Mac, Linux, and Windows, unless there's reasons to deviate.
I think
What would be consistency with desktop if possible.
But then you have two competing goals. We all agree with the main goal, the first one that you said, which is consistency between, of course, CLR, between the supported OSs.
Yep.
But then you have two competing goals: correct behavior and consistency with desktop.
no, so Evo didn't say correct behavior. He said the same behavior between
Yes.
Windows and Mac, right? So we can have this behavior between Windows and Mac, no problem.
Yeah.
Right? And Windows and Linux, no problem. Now, we may say that like designed in a vacuum, that was the wrong behavior. We should have done this other thing. But it's very easy to align the behavior. Then if we want to move everything forward, we can do that separately, right?
Yes.
And it seems like changing it to throw on Linux is the more tactical choice. So we would get parity right away, and then we can decide if we want to change this to an exception.
I mean, I would also argue that, I mean, it's pretty, I don't know how common these APIs are called, but I would also argue that if the behavior would be massively wrong, we probably would have heard by now that people don't like the current behavior. So it's probably not too bad.
Yeah, a lot of these bugs that I filed are pretty distant edge cases that I couldn't find almost anything about on Google. Like, I didn't see a lot of people complaining about them. From file time more so, but not really the next ones.
Yeah. And the second one was alignment. Is there any, so in order to make a decision, like, is there any strong preference one way or the other, whether we basically make everything forward and fix desktop, or we go with the tactical choice and just handle the case on Unix and return the same way as we return on full fabric? I have to argue that from my point of view, as I said, I think if throwing would be way more desirable, probably more people would have complained about that case by now.
I'm leaning towards a tactical fix, and simply because of what that would mean to make it full change everywhere.
I still kind of would. I suspect there's some reason for it. I mean, this behavior is so weird that it didn't happen by accident.
You make a so I subscribe to based on past experience.
High chance that that's what happened.
I don't think it's
And it was even documented. So
I think this behavior made. I have no history about this, but I think this behavior made because, like, trying to avoid the exceptions. I mean, because, like, if you have a lot of files and trying to get the, the date for it or the time access and they will get some exceptions through, it will be very bad. So maybe we were trying to avoid just the exception with this behavior.
In many similar cases, we throw exceptions. So.
Right, but yeah,
And it's not like the CPI doesn't throw, like they already have other, like it throws five different exceptions.
So what is can you look at the implementation? Like, what does Win32 API do?
Like just return your code, I believe.
It's actually possible that Win32 returns you.
Because exactly. If Win32 API just returns 0, then maybe that's the reason for the behavior.
Yeah. So we didn't even handle the case, it just happened to work that way. Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. I mean, you owned IO, do you know? So
why this doesn't throw?
Yeah, why it returns 0?
Because that's what Win32 does.
Yeah.
Win32 doesn't throw anyway. Right?
No, it doesn't throw. It doesn't return an error code.
Yeah, can you actually quickly?
Does anybody know the underlying Win32 API on top of that?
File time. Looking at it now.
All right, what does it say?
This takes 3 optional LP file type pointers that are, and then if the function fails, the return value is 0.
Right. Yeah, see, so exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason. It's like we would have to have baked up with it. Usually we go get Win32 error, translate to something useful.
No, but it returns bool. What does the bool? What does the bool mean?
Success or no success?
File attribute.
Are we actually calling get file time, or are we calling find next find?
File attribute info looks like.
I don't think we're calling this API. I think we're
Should we call something differently?
Assign first.
We may have called this at one
Get
point,
last.
but we changed a bunch of this in, for.
So it function succeeds the return values.
No, but if you didn't find it.
Yeah, so it's possible that, if it fails, we don't know whether the file doesn't exist or something else. So we didn't want to.
I think if you don't look through the history of the code, I mean you'll see exactly why this.
Return default value for backward compatibility.
We shouldn't probably try and figure that out right now, though, because it's kind of a.
So another option we could do is just implement the existing behavior, just cut out issues where we feel like the way we would like the framework to behave is different than how it does behave. And then once we kind of build a backlog of many of these, we decide what to do with them. Because doing corking and changing these things one by one, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have enough value, but doing them in bulk and basically saying, we fixed a category of issues and now we throw exceptions for things instead of returning bogus values. That may have more
But
value.
we've done this for 15 years. Why would we change this behavior?
Because we now have, we're now doing it, we have now currently different behavior on Linux and on
Okay,
Linux,
we
right?
should unify that.
So while we are doing this, we are thinking
Maybe we should.
what should we do? What is,
Yeah, we should probably mimic Win32, right? I'm sorry, I came late, so.
but do you agree that returning bogus data is wrong? Whether we should throw an exception or we should try or something is a separate issue, but today the API just returned bogus data.
By bogus data,
File doesn't
data
exist,
that I
but-
can't, data that I can't interpret as bogus, or actual.
Zero, return 0.
Yeah, so that's not bogus data. That's
No,
file data.
yes, maybe the file was created in 1695.
No,
So it is
we're returning a date time here, right? Yeah. Date time are we returning it, right? So date time is it actually date time min value, or is it actually the lowest value that Win32 can represent? That the Win32 file system.
I think this is 1960 something, which is to be the lowest value for the.
Okay, so
It's like
it is
1/1/1960.
Okay.
It says it's the same as from file time 0.
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever that is.
So it's not daytime.
It's not time.
So you have to. It's kind of a pain to get to this, right? Because you have to go daytime dot file time from file time 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get kind of great.
Kernel implementation does find first file and then calls APIs to actually fit in the attribute data, so it doesn't actually call that particular API.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah, they do that to.
we probably
They
could,
used to, but
yeah.
they. I don't think we actually call this particular API. Is it? I thought it
No,
was get
no.
file info.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
use the attribute data and then we fill that in from the 32.
But in the find case, we don't want to look up again. So that's why we.
I mean,
But that was a change in 4.0 or 4.5 or 4.0.
they haven't looked at the code history, maybe older than that. Right, so so it seems like the preference is we just keep the framework behavior and make it consistent across Mac and Linux.
But could we keep the backlog of these issues somewhere?
And do what with that?
If we have a bulk and we say, let's just fix the wacky behavior in CoreFX and add corking mode to .NET, we would at least remember that
Maybe
we
we
had.
can tag the issue on the GitHub with some tag about it. Need to be revisited or something.
I would say based on past experience, we never do. We never
Well,
go.
I've never heard a complaint about this at all.
I mean,
I've seen many other complaints, but not. But I don't know. I see what you're saying, but
Tag is, won't hurt. It's not like,
no, I wouldn't.
I would not make that, like a tag that says to revisit, like over promises.
Yeah, whatever I mean.
I would just say a behavior, existing behavior that we don't like.
The Win32 documentation says that some file systems don't even have a concept of file time. So the Win32 API returns the same 0. Would you throw a different exception? I think returning default is better. You don't know why it failed. It could be many reasons.
That's fine. It could be, I would just throw an exception and say it failed.
There's already
You asked for time, you couldn't retrieve it. Now,
there's already exceptions that tell you some things like path too long or invalid paths. But so it looks like this might only be found if the file can't be found. But as you said, there might be just not the fact it doesn't exist. Maybe some.
Or who knows? Linux uses so many file systems.
Yep, no, I agree with the defaulting. It's
daytime. Yeah,
we don't use date time. We just use 0, and then it becomes whatever date 0 represents.
but in 0 in the terms of Win32 or 0 in the terms of whatever the file system is on every particular iOS.
well, hopefully daytime 0 is the same date.
Yeah.
No,
Linux is started from 1970.
So
Yeah.
that's my point.
So
is
if I say new daytime past 0, I'm gonna get 2 different dates.
no,
That seems like
No,
a.
no.
this is not that
Okay,
correct.
but I was just asking about it. Like if I create new daytime and past 0,
Yeah, I will get the minimum date, which is January 1st,
I
year
will get
1.
that. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
But we're not returning. We're not returning.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
We're returning the min value that the
Yeah.
file system is going to represent.
All
I
right.
think you want datetime.file time from file time. Is that going to always be a Win32 concept, or is that are we going to translate that for Linux and Mac?
So right now it's hard coded as
I think Steven
Win32.
Matt, do you have
Actually,
any-
I mean, the documentation says that we do from file time 0, right? So like, it seems to me that if the goal is to have the same behavior between Windows and Linux, Windows and Mac, we would do from file time 0.kicks, just like we said in the documentation. Like we wouldn't try to.
But from file time.
But would file time from file time return what? What value would 0 be for file time?
we use
File time 0 give the same on Unix and Windows.
Yeah, from file time UTC, and I would assume that it would be the same, right? For UTC, wouldn't it be the same on every platform?
Well, 0 to Win32 means something different to Mac and Linux.
Yes, but we're using 0 as like the value of the universal time, right? Wouldn't that be the same across platforms?
No, not from file time. Not in
The
file time
eras,
concept.
the eras start at different time.
So the question is I think the question is for date time from file time. Do you assume this means the Win32 file time concept, which is like a tick count from a certain epoch, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I would say that by default, my guess would be that we would not change the meaning of that. We would say that the file time epoch is a Win32 concept, like let's stick with that, and then.
So if we were to come up with a file system where 0 in Win32 terms has actual real meaning in a time with that problem, right?
Isn't file time in general a Win32 concept?
Dear God.
The voice from above.
We're sorry, Steven. Can we set that down?
I just unmuted Steven, so I think I just.
Yeah, Steve, that was very loud.
Sorry.
Yeah, Steve, it is a Win32 concept. So, I mean, this is sort of my point. Is like it seems weird to go change the meaning of like
I think, yeah, I agree. I think we just accept the fact that it's a Win32 concept and we leave it as a Win32 concept.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what we did for Silverlight, right? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, Silverlight probably hid a lot of this stuff from you, right? Or did ISO?
Well, you probably get it through ISO store. Yeah, probably.
So can somebody verify that we are actually returning the same value? Because otherwise we are kind of, trying to get to consistency between the OSs, but if we are returning a different value, then we are back to the original value.
Well, I mean, we'll write a test case, right? I assume there's a test that fails today is like the way that you discovered this, right? But, yeah.
Or fix it. But as I said, my opinion is if we fix it, we should probably fix many of these in bulk, not just one.
I think it'd be very hard to reason about this in a quirk way, right? Can you imagine a code base that's moved from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.5 to 4.0, and then in some update, we change this to throw now, and they recompile, and now every single access to get write time and get creation time now has to be wrapped in a try. That would be very hard for a code base. Like, imagine a code base like VS moving. You'd have to look at every single usage of Git.
Yeah.
And wrap it in a try.
Yeah. I did a follow-up to that. Like, if we, I don't even know what the path would be, but I mean, we could decide what we do there. But I agree with Dave. It seems like a very hard undertaking to actually fix that. So, is there any more questions on that one? I think you got all the answers you were looking for, right? The list ratio.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And I will send more detailed notes after that. But I mean, you just leave it open, and then what is this one?
This one's the same thing except with file. So it's
I see. So they're all like
basically a duplicate.
this one, I guess, same thing.
No, that one's different. So this one has to do with create subdirectory and directory info, parsing its input, completely differently than all the other create directory and create files.
And this one
So if you give it just
isn't about, sorry, this one isn't about cross-platform. This is just inconsistency within the Windows implementation, right?
I think it's in the Linux one too.
No, but I meant like it's not a difference between Windows and Linux. It's, you
Oh,
forget
no.
Linux. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you try to create a subdirectory with just white space, it will return the parent directory. So in this case, it will return parent dir. Whereas if you tried to make a new directory, it'll throw an exception with just white space.
Well, and from that perspective, it actually is different from Linux because we don't trim out the white space on Linux.
Yeah.
But full framework has the same behavior that you described here, right? So that will be.
I think isn't this kind of something that you guys should just go offline and try to figure out, like, go and come up with a proposal? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not really an FXTC decision. This is more of a
Why isn't
go
it?
and figure out the same behavior and make a call.
Sorry, I didn't understand. This is a case where there are two framework APIs that are logically the same thing but are behaving differently.
Isn't it the same API that has different things? Like we just handle white space and other new line and tabs differently. Like maybe it seems like it's the same API has different behaviors based on input, right? Is that what like we just?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was actually. I thought we were looking at a different issue. Yeah, this is very similar to the next one, which is what I was actually talking about. Sorry.
Oh, but in this case, we just treat white space like spaces differently than like new line and tabs, right?
Oh no, this one has to do with how. Let's see if I have a good example there.
The difference between
Yeah.
space and new line and tab, correct?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Because it's not white space; it's literally just character 32, whatever that is.
Space.
So the problem was that directory.create directory will treat white space differently than directory.create subdirectory. So if you were calling directory.create directory with just white space on Windows, it would throw an exception. But if you do the same thing with directory info.create subdirectory, it will not throw an exception. It'll return parent dir.
Yeah.
But if you just pass it,
Create.
Hmm?
It's not creating a subdirect. It's just returning the.
yes.
But
Which one
what
works?
if I do directory.create directory C /temp space? Because that's the equivalent, right?
Yes. So all create subdirectory does is do that. It calls directory.create directory.
If we call directory.create directory C /temp space,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? Because that would be the equivalent of create subdirectory. Right?
I think you were arguing that's exactly
will
what
do
this
that.
thing does, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it will be.
So what's the inconsistency?
Inconsistency is if you just pass like a relative path of spaces, it'll throw an exception.
That's because it's
With directory.create directory, but not directory.create subdirectory.
okay. So creating a directory with just spaces, you would imply would go and like look up current directory, append the spaces, and return the current directory, assuming that it behaves the same as create subdirectory.
Yes.
Okay, and we throw in that case.
There's another issue, which is the next one, that is pretty related to this. And that one has a better example.
Sorry.
So in that case, there's like the discrepancies between two different APIs, correct?
How they handle white space input.
But are those two consistent within themselves? Like create subdirectory behaves exactly the same across platforms, and create directory behaves. So just a question of do we want to have the same behavior between create directory and create subdirectory?
No, but they're not the same input. They're two different like the same input would be C /temp space and create subdirectory space. That would be the same input.
Yeah.
If you're just passing space to create directory, we first have to figure out what the root is. So then we go and we're going to grab the current directory and append it to that. And then I'm guessing that we validate some white space check there.
Well, if you just pass space to create directory, it'll throw an exception.
Yeah, but the inputs are not the same. One is creating a subdirectory given this root, and create directory is saying create this directory exactly
right here.
This directory, just grabbing current directory if it's.
Well, the test that I made that found this particular instance had to do with trying to create a subdirectory and seeing what the return was. So does it make sense for a parent directory to do .create subdirectory with some white space and have it just return the instance of parent directory?
You're arguing that this issue is basically the difference between an implied root and an explicit root?
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, if you write the code, I mean, on whiteboard, I don't know whether the video would catch it, but we could just. Can we notepad it?
I know. So you're saying
Notepad.
after, what did you say, create directory? Oh, sorry, directory, I don't even know APIs. Create, and then you say d backslash.
Create. And backslash space. What does that return? So I'm assuming that returns 10.
Yes. Create directory.
Say, do this, right?
And then if you did an instance of directory info.
That means that second one is saying get me the current directory, append space to it, and create it.
So if you show the current directory is temp, what would they do? Would they have the same behavior?
No, well, he's saying that we throw in this because we're clearly validating.
Yeah.
It's actually worse than nothing. It tells you that I created your parent.
But this is Win32. Like you go and do this in DOS, and you'll see that. So the same behavior, these kind of same behaviors.
Yeah, if I pass an existing directory to these APIs, do both of them just return the directory? They don't create anything, don't throw an exception, just.
Yeah, no, that's the prediction. You have to go on the
Is that
other
how
screen.
the behavior?
Yes. The behavior is if the directory already exists, we don't throw, we just return the directory.
So in line 7, it'll return the same thing as line 3.
Yeah, line 3 because they're equivalent. Yeah.
Right.
5 is different.
Yeah.
5 is get me the current directory, append. Well, in other APIs, it means get me the current directory, append space.
But you would think that.
But I think if you go and do path.get full path on an empty string just like that, the same you'd get it with throw again. So it's not just create directory here. I think it's pretty much every single API that takes a path that does validation. Path combine does not do any validation. So, but
the Windows naming conventions say don't end the file or document with a space or period. The underlying files may support it, but shell and such user interfaces don't. So I'm wondering if we're doing some validations to say.
Well, we are. We're applying Win32 isms. We're not applying file systems.
Right.
But I'm guessing that's what happens, right? For number 7, basically.
Yeah.
it will basically do nothing, correct?
Yeah, that's what 9 does.
Exactly. So basically, but I would argue that this is logically equivalent with 5.
It is, but so this is more than directory.create directory. This is every single path. Like get full path will also have the same behavior.
Sure. I mean, the question is an implementation detail, or is that part of what you would do for reasoning about that? But I mean,
the question, I think the question is, can we treat spaces as a relative do we throw on spaces when they don't have a root? That's the.
So it looks like when we're normalizing the path, the first thing we do is get rid of white space at the end.
Yes.
Which is why that one doesn't.
So
like we
so
get rid of.
What if we put a?
Like if you.
What if we would have put a backslash and like space backslash? What would happen? Like, is that a?
It depends what like Crement does.
No, in number 5, what happens if you add a backslash at the end, right?
Like that. Number 5. Sorry. Oh yeah.
Like, what do we do in that? I think a lot of this behavior you'll see inherited off.
Like, it only trim trailing new space or trailing white space, so I think that would probably throw rather than trail. Rather than trim.
It will throw.
Like this?
5 will throw.
And there's that slash there, I think.
It's like that?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it'll only trim the trailing white space characters, but if there's a slash there, then it's no longer trailing. So you just have that slash, that space.
Yeah, and that would then theoretically that would combine.
I don't think it'll throw. I think you're going to get a directory for your root. I think you're going to get one for C:.
Oh yeah, because it's rooted. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Also, 9 will
The root and yeah.
9 will throw if you pass a new line character or tab instead of a space. So if you did new directory info temp.create subdirectory just of a new line, that'll throw.
I mean, in order like
It gives you C. Like
Yeah.
the second line gives
Well,
you.
Steven's right.
Well,
Steven said that.
Yeah, that's what I said. He's right.
But it seems like here, like the behavior may not be intuitive. Maybe if we're designing from scratch, we'll implement it differently. But it's different than the first issue that we discussed because we can just do the same thing on Linux and Mac, and there's no wackiness like in the first example where, we could do the same thing on Linux and Macs, but then the file times are not the same concepts. And this one is just, you discovered something that is a bit strange.
Yeah, well, this is already sort of not relevant to Linux and Mac because spaces and entire white space names are perfectly valid file names. So we don't do any of that trimming.
Generally, Stephen, normalization rules on Windows behave a certain way, right? In Linux, it's valid to, I guess, create pretty much a path from any string, right?
Yeah, basically the only thing you can't have in a file name is a /. Everything else is valid.
Even a single space.
Even a single space, even a random white space, Unicode character is totally valid.
The same is true in Windows. It's just Windows 2 doesn't allow it.
I see.
The shell becomes very weird when you try and make a directory with the space.
Yeah.
Very weird things happen.
Well, I mean, the question is, on Windows, it then makes sense to basically do what the shell does, which is what we have done. But I mean, the question is, for Linux implementation, would it make sense to apply the shell rules to Win32 to Linux? I guess probably, maybe not, right?
No, I mean, if anything, you would want to apply the terminal rules on Unix, which are, everything's allowed. So
yeah, you don't want to limit costs.
But that would mean that this particular behavior that we have here, where if you append a space, would have different behavior than on Linux, and that will be okay because that will be expected.
Right. Well, it's exactly as if anywhere we had spaces here, we had some other valid character, and will behave exactly like that.
Yeah, I think that what I'm trying to say is it's not so much that one input is illegal on Windows and it's legal on Linux. It's just on Windows, because we normalize, you basically just create the parent, versus on Linux, you can actually create a subdirectory that has a single space. So it's not just one case is failing, the other one is succeeding. It's just you literally have completely different outputs. But I would argue that would be okay. I mean, otherwise you can never get consistency within Linux.
Sorry, I didn't completely follow that. Can you try?
So if you look at the example here, number 3,
you're
right?
both saying the same thing, right?
So this one here basically would, on Windows, it wouldn't fail. It would literally just say, well, create d:\temp, right? Because we just trim the trailing space.
Right.
On Linux, you wouldn't trim it. You would literally just create a subdirectory with a space.
Correct.
So arguably, you could say there's behavior difference, but I would argue that's expected because the underlying file system just behaves differently.
Yes.
All right, so then, what was this one? Is it the same one or a different one?
This one is another one that's a little bit different. It's another inconsistency with the way Windows file move works.
But again, this is just within .NET Framework on Windows, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing to do with cross-plat or...
This is just sounds like a bug, right? So is this inconsistent with who? Inconsistent with itself, is that what it is?
With the other methods. So the way it decides between file not found exceptions and directory not found exceptions is the same throughout all the other functions except for file move. It has a special test on it, and if the internal path for the source isn't found, it'll just throw a file not found
I
exception.
know why this happens, because Win32 doesn't provide enough information. So it says it failed, and we have no idea why it failed, which parameter was wrong. So then we go and I think we do a follow-up check to say which parameter was actually wrong here, to give the user a bit of a. But Windows 32 just says this failed.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't say it was this parameter and this parameter. So it just says it failed. So we try to do a little bit more.
Yeah, we do checks for the destination path, but not the source path. And then in other places, like in file info move, we do checks for the source path and the destination path. It's just file.move for some reason.
Oh, okay, so this
doesn't check the source, only the destination.
So file info and file move have different paths. Okay, so that's an issue.
What one? File info, and what was the other one?
File. File info.move to and file.move.
Let's see. Yeah, I think this is
another example. Is file copy does the same thing. A file copy, if the source is missing a parent directory, then it'll throw a directory not found exception. But file.move will just throw a file not found exception no matter what.
Yeah.
But if we fixed it for the core, it'd be a breaking change too.
Question is it these kind of changes worth fixing?
Yeah.
File not found and directory not found, you probably do the treatment exactly.
Yeah.
what I do.
Just catch exception.
If you Jared, you catch exception.
If you like reliable code, you just catch exception.
Different definitions of reliable.
Yeah.
Well, you guys clearly just use different exceptions for the same problem. So.
Open it from IO exceptions, so it can be a bit more specific.
Yeah, but you guys do other things that aren't IO exceptions. It's
true.
I think if you list the number of exceptions don't file operations, it's longer than just exception.
C# would have a comma.
In this case, it's argument exception, unauthorized access exception, and
all kinds of IO exceptions, network
IO exception, and
network exceptions.
I don't think we bleed through a network exception in this.
Sure.
Yeah.
See,
I think the file system handles
just
that.
catch exception.
Moving on. I think, yeah, to David's point, I think you should probably just make a proposal what you would like the result to be, and then we can talk about what the ramifications are. I think the higher order that we discussed earlier, like as a guiding principle, is have consistency within core across operating systems if possible. And then the second part is what does it mean to provide plausible code between full framework and desktop? Do we deviate from desktop enough that we should fix desktop? If so, then we probably need to do a DDC review and say, like, what would that look like? Another option is to just keep with the .NET Framework behavior within core, which is probably what I would use as the default argument. Because as David pointed out, these APIs are fairly old and fairly long in existence, and this never registered as a huge issue. So maybe it's just not worth deviating.
It's a pretty specific edge case. I mean, it is inconsistent with the other methods in file, but I didn't see a lot of instances where people actually came upon this issue. If they did, they just caught an IO exception.
Yeah.
So we could leave it there. We could just like mark a comment on it or something.
Yeah. And then let's look at the last one, and then I think if I figure out how to move the mouse over to the screen. Here we go. That was just the API. Never mind. So then we're pretty much done. All right.
Thanks.
So ILDASM, I just try to adjust the screen to actually allow us to just one thing. I think the downside is
Where's
that
Nick? Is Nick online?
I don't think he is. Yeah, so this is the thing with hardware. I have to look at a different screen when you do the demo. I don't think we can actually see the same as there.
You stop the previous one?
Nope, this one should still be running. And hopefully. Yep, still works. I should just probably project the second screen again. And yeah, it just switch places. You have caps lock on, that will not work. Yep.
Unless your password
Caps lock
requires
is on.
you to be with caps lock.
It does.
Still on.
Still on.
Oh, there you go.
So just a little context here. What I worked this summer was on implementing a library that was built on top of the new metadata reader, which was written in managed code to represent as an object model all the metadata objects on an assembly. So with the main goal of being able to visit the tree through a visitor pattern and be able, the main goal was to be able to round trip an assembly through my tool and then run ILDASM on top of it and get a running assembly. So basically, I'm just going to show an example that manages type reference objects such as datetime and use generics, lambda expressions, and throws and catch exceptions, and do a round trip of that little demo and run it. So this is basically a console application that I wrote that consumes my library. So as we can see, here is where I create the object for my library. And then I get, well, this line is not needed, but here I create a file in this directory and then just call assembly write2 and pass the file. This assembly write2, the only thing that does is starts traversing the tree through a visitor that I implemented that is an IL string visitor that the only thing that has is a writer and some options, either if you want to show the bytes and the tokens or not, and just starts writing the assembly through this method, right? So it starts visiting the whole tree and outputs the file.
That makes sense.
So right now, the assembly that I'm gonna run on top of it is
To help set the stage here, you're using our metadata reader, the one that we've got public on NuGet.org. You wrote an object model around that metadata reader.
Yep.
Similar to reflection, and now you then wrote some helper code to output in ILDASM. Right?
That's right. That's correct.
One of the bigger things, or bigger pieces, was the fact that the method body parsing was also something he implemented. So
okay, so you also implemented. Okay, so you implemented method parsing.
Yes, and you can get the actual IL values and traverse with the tree. So
you can do a lot of cool, like looking at IL stuff.
So basically, my little demo what does is I've got a program that has a datetime object use reflection, which is a struct that I wrote right there. And what I did is just created a list with some values and then print the list and then sort the list with a lambda expression, then print the list again. And then I wrote a Fibonacci little example to use recursion, print that value, and then I use some reflection and I just print all the opcodes that have an inline known operand type code. So if
you run that,
yep. So if I run this and then go to the directory, what I get is this. So this is what my so this is what my tool outputs. Right now I'm single quote. I'm escaping all the names because since I'm using reflection, sort of some data, I get some non-valid names for MSA, so that ILDASM can run through this. It's pretty good.
How close is this output to like what ILDASM output did?
Like the only difference right now is pretty much the single escape thing.
What do you mean by single escape?
Yeah, so I'm escaping all the names with single quotes right now.
Regardless of whether the string actually needs escaping in IL. So you're over escaping essentially.
Yep.
But you ever done a diff between the output, like a textual diff? Like is the textual representation close? Like is the indenting the same? Is the layout the same, or is this?
Yeah, the indenting is the same. Another difference is they do a line escape on after every parameter. I'm not doing that now. And
does ILDASM read PDBs? Because I see you're making up
yeah, so ILDASM reads PDB debug mode and when you use the UI, but when you do ILDASM all and then the assembly and dash out and the file to output it, it doesn't.
So local names are anyway, local names, because local names like V _0, V _1, V _2 come from PDBs, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So it doesn't.
Yeah, we kind of keep that.
So yeah, this is what I put, and if I go.
Sorry, one question. So which identifiers do need escaping? You say that you over escape, but what needs escaping?
So all the MSIL reserved keywords needs escaping.
Spaces, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and all all the class names identifiers that are not valid identifier name. For example, if it has a $sign on it, or if it starts with a special sign, or those cases.
So I'm planning to fix it to kind of implement the same logic and then don't overescape.
So I had something already with regular expressions and stuff like that, but the perf went down. It was really bad.
It was going to file an issue and get to do it.
So right now I have a case where I only single escape reserve MSIL words, and what I do with that is I have a dictionary, well, a hash set that has all the MSIL reserved words, and just check if the word is on that hash set and single escape that. But the regular expression thing, I got rid of
index
it.
of any, like, do you have to do a regular expression? Surely I'll index of any.
But the regular expression is for to see if the identifier name is MSIL valid name.
But is it?
I think what you're saying is that you could check if any of the unallowed characters are inside the name, and in that case, just do the escape it.
Okay.
Essentially, you just need to handle two cases, right? One of them is it's a keyword, which is the hash set testing, and the other one is do you have any of the invalid characters in the identifier, which probably would be a better perf than a regex.
Okay, because to me, like, the over-escaping is so simple.
Yeah,
there's so much of it.
Yeah.
It makes it kind of hard.
Yeah, I just did it now, so I was able to do this complex demo with reflection on it and
also
lambda expressions.
Are creating the display class with a wonky name.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that would probably be nice, because some people use ILDASM for various reasons, right? They parse it, they search in it, they check it in, they do diff. So it would probably be nice if you could match the ILDASM output, if possible, character by character, unless we say there are certain errors that are just completely ugly in ILDASM, we want to fix that. But it's probably never to be super pretty, I guess, because it's ILDASM output. But I think it would probably be helpful to just match it for all these reasons people use it, to just make gifting easier and stuff like that.
Do you have a round tripping demo?
Yeah. So right now the IL that I showed, it was already generated by my tool from the assembly that I showed you that does the lambda expression and all that to sort the list. So right now, if I do ILDASM foo.il, I get the foo.exe. So if I do foo.exe, runs, so we can see.
Nice.
So here is like a welcome. And then here prints the list, then sorts it, then prints it sort, then calls Fibonacci, then print the opcodes, and then throws an exception, catch it, and catch it. So
nice.
Awesome.
That's cool.
What about the ordering of the output? The ordering of the members, does it match out? Is it purely based on where it's an IO, or are you doing any sort of sorting?
No, I'm just getting them on the order that the metadata reader provides me all those types and methods and all that.
So that could be slightly different too, I guess, depending on the node.
I'm guessing out of that. I get.
Yes, it depends on the compiler puts them in.
But I think the methods are sort of the same within the classes. I'm not certain about the type definitions because the methods are sorted by tokens, but I'm not certain how the metadata reader reads the types.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's great.
We normally
We're
want
on our way to rewriting ILDASM.
Yeah. Only thing we don't need is UI, which I've heard somebody is really good at UI. No,
Are you just volunteering? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'll find out my WinForm skills.
Well, this guy just said we should just rewrite it. And
Yeah, but
we.
I don't know. But you're usually the UI guy.
So I'm not the UI guy.
It has to look like ILDASM.
Yes, it has to look shitty, right? It can't look good. Otherwise, people start using it over Visual Studio. So no, what's our goal with the project and the source? Are we going to publish this? Are we getting that on GitHub?
Yes, I think, I mean, she's already working on a branch out of CoreFX. We're on our way moving it to CoreFX Lab. I think by the end of the week we'll have it running there, so it'll be there.
Can we do a quick API review after, at one point?
We did like a midterm one.
Another one again.
Do you have the API file for you?
No, but
You can open the,
We did an API review, but we mainly talked about kind of high level
Yes.
objectives and structure of the.
Yeah, and you changed quite significantly, right? You added a visitor, you added I think you changed the object model quite a bit. So it probably wouldn't hurt to look at the
I
API.
could generate the APX file right now.
Yeah,
You
I
just
mean,
need a line breaking one of the the outputs there.
I mean, we still have time left.
There's like when you start Fibonacci.
put them on the spot or anything.
So, would never do that.
Never.
That would be cruel.
I saw it.
Oh, yeah.
And like, what about?
Yeah, after printing
so
the,
you need to
yeah.
do a line break there.
Oh, unacceptable.
It's just like,
No high.
Okay, no, that's it. We're done. All right, everybody out.
it's my editing eye.
So do you wanna open the?
The APX file?
Can you just open an API reviewer from FX Core? You can just open it from the command line.
You know the command line?
Yeah, FX Core. Tools. Then
Tools.
just do backslash and now it's API reviewer.lnk. I think that even works. Oh, this one? Yep. Hit enter, it should work.
I'll let you get the
Poor man's clicking.
Anyway, this looks like a great tool. When are we gonna get this public?
It's got a really nice UI.
Yeah, it has
Someone who wrote a UI like that could probably do ILDASM.
I'm sure you could just do that very quickly as well.
Yeah, it's on the list of things. It's actually not as easy as you think it is.
You don't want excuses.
I know. I have one job, man.
One of the things we do want to talk about, you need to drop it on one.
Make it somewhere in the editor, not in the left-hand side.
Oh.
Yeah, that will work.
One of the things we were talking about is the name of the assembly and namespace.
Yeah, there's kind of I saw two kind of goals here. There's like an object model, and let's write it out like ILDASM kind of thing, right? They're kind of two separate.
You want to? Yeah, let me just do one thing here because it means in one.
Zoom.
Actually.
You were gonna have it.
And then you can just add some comments along the way. And the other thing that I think you can see is this guy, right?
Yeah, we currently haven't updated the namespace to the whatever we have in the assembly name. Simply because we don't want to change it twice.
Yeah. I think last time we talked about the object model, one of the concerns was naming overlap with an actual object model / whether we can use that object model as a general object model. And the last time the object model was very much around the idea that it's being written out, meaning like it had like things like this. I mean, culture string probably isn't too bad, but flags and some other things were also strings. But some of this has seemed to have changed quite a bit.
I have to say one thing that is really unfortunate is that all the type names start with I, and I have such a mental block. I think they are interfaces.
Well, the reason why we went with that is to make it clear. It's like IL assembly instead of assembly because to avoid
I
name.
understand that I don't have a great solution to this problem, but it is a problem because
Yes,
every time I look at the type names, I'm thinking, what is L assembly and why do we have an interface for it?
Personally, given that it matches my initials, I'm fine. Looks like I wrote all the time.
So how do you
Emo assembly. Alright.
method bodies? Because I don't see any instructions.
And the instructions namespace.
Oh, that one. Sorry.
Everything starts with I. Because he wrote it.
I wrote a lot of it.
It's an homage to.
But you're missing the L, apparently.
Yeah,
because that's an interface.
You need to be IL. Two I's.
IL visible.
That seems like something we should figure out what we want to do with that. I mean, there was also the question like whether we would have an object model in general about the metadata reader.
Yeah. Given that there's everything.
It's very hard to use right now in this sense. So how does the visitor generally work? You basically just have one method for all the objects. That makes sense. And then everything is visitable. That makes sense too.
Why, can you go to the toString? Well, generally with the visitors, we usually go the abstract base class pattern where it does the kind of visiting logic, digging into signatures and parameters and things like that, or is this more of a callback style? Or?
You have a base.
I guess.
You basically would have like either like you would either have a functional one where you return the value and you control like base.visit does the walks to children. You have either that pattern or the bool pattern where you're like return true or false to visit, in depth or whatever. And it seems like here we have the callback pattern where I can't control the visit. Like if I'm in signature and I'm like, I don't want to walk signatures defined by C++, that's a legal C++ CLI. Like, how do I say, like, when I hit the method signature, like, don't visit the parameters? I don't want to see them. How do I control that?
I think in this model, I think the consumer is responsible for making sure that everything is visited that you want to visit. You just don't visit by literally not.
No, but I think he's saying I want to visit some of the parameters, not all, or
I want to visit some of the methods,
types.
not all of the methods on a type.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like if you're implementing iVisitor, right, you implement, let's say, iMethod definition, right?
Right.
And then it's your or let's say in this case probably more like Folzer type definition, right? Whatever that thing is.
But so is every implementation of iVisitor then responsible for knowing how to walk all the parameters of a method?
There's a base one. There's a base
Because generally it's the other way around, that you have a generic visitor which knows how to walk the things in more of a receiver pattern.
Yes.
This seems like it's
There is a base
additional-
one, the IL toString visitor that kind of does that. The normal walking, you'd expect that most people will probably just inherit, not override and do what.
But the toString visitor, like I would never look to derive that because
Sure.
that's trying to do a specific thing.
Yeah, I think
I
we
would
can-
imagine there's an IL visitor and then the toString visitor is a derived type.
Yeah, we could probably do that.
That's kind of what I would.
So what Roslyn has done is you have visitor and walkers, right? Like the visitor literally just handles one, and the walkers basically allows you to visit the structure, right? Correct, and then you can just do base dot blah, and then that will walk everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works too, I guess.
So the instruction pattern looks interesting as well. So you split instructions based on their type rather than their actual
By operand type.
yeah.
Because there is like 250 instructions. So on the method body parsing, you gotta to resolve the tokens, you gotta know what the operand type. So we wanted to get rid of that switch statement while going through the opcodes. So the best approach was splitting instructions by objects that represent that operand type. So when you visit that instruction, you know what token you're treating and what value you're looking to
So what
get as
about
an
IL
argument.
switch construction?
That's the switch
That's the
statement.
switch statement.
That doesn't have a. I'm trying to.
It has jumps.
It has jumps only. It doesn't have a type. It doesn't have a. The
It has the operand.
yeah. What
It doesn't even understand.
So the operand is the IL offset, where it starts from, and then it has the jumps. So you can calculate what labels do you want to jump to.
But how do I know what the type is to the switch name?
What do you mean by type in that case?
Well, the fact that I've done a switch on an int, or done a switch on a.
So I think the idea is like if you look at IL instruction, then you have the opcode, and then based on what that opcode is, you have a particular instance of IL instruction, right? So you would have to basically switch and then cast. I think that's the idea.
So to know what you're switching on, you could check the previous instructions, what you loaded into the stack. Because the switch instruction, what does is it takes the latest value in the stack and switches against that.
This is similar to like call any method or anything, right?
Yeah.
Pushing the parameters on the stack and just you have to
Yeah,
call
I couldn't remember how it's represented. Roslyn doesn't use the switch statement very often, so instruction it uses branches a lot.
I mean, did you look into whether you can just have representing IL instruction with a struct as opposed to having an inheritance hierarchy?
Yep.
You thought about that, yeah. It would just make it a lot more ugly. Because you'd have to know which field on the struct to get the option out for each of the instructions.
The user of the API will always have to do a switch statement over the output and they can cast the value to different types based on that.
Yeah, but they have to do that anyway in this case.
In this case, when you're using a visitor pattern, you already have the thing that switches abstracted.
But you don't have a visitor specifically for the instructions.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Every one of the instructions has a.
I see. Well, I guess you could still have that, right? You could just have different method names or different overloads that actually give you the strongly typed arguments in there. And I'm just trying to think, if you run ILDASM, let's say, against a large table with thousands of method bodies, right? You're allocating a ton of stuff as you're going through that.
And didn't we talk last time about kind of breaking this whole library into two separate features? One very low level, kind of corresponding to the metadata reader, which is optimized for perf, and then on top of it building something to generate text, for example.
Yeah, I think
we talked about this last time.
Oh, I wasn't here last time, but yeah, I mean that was my first comment. Yeah, exactly. The other thing is we have to kind of we've been holding off writing an object model on this thing because we didn't want to write an object model because there are already existing object models. We have to kind of trade that off, do we just grab CCI and CSOL and existing metadata readers and just sit them on top of the metadata reader, or do we go and write an object model that's now a branch from those things? So
I started to play with doing an object model. The most trickiest part is it's very hard to get the convenience of what Roslyn and reflection has without resolving. But once you do resolving, you basically go down a path that gets very quickly very complicated.
You end up with something like CCI.
even if you branch refs from depths, or
Well, that's one thing. Like the other part of it is there's certain things like attribute parsing where CCI kind of cheats a bit, and it's not necessarily always well defined. I mean, I talked with Nick about this for a long time, and we couldn't come up with a way that would guarantee to be working in all cases. I thought.
Case, the enum case.
Yeah, the enum case, and then there's the other
But
part.
we already have that problem today, right? Regardless of an object model. You try and read an enum, you don't know how much to read.
It's true, but the way the metadata reader is implemented, like because you are responsible for parsing freaking everything, it's your problem essentially, right?
Well, in 1.1, we're adding attribute parsing, so we have to solve that.
Yes. And the way I think the API solves it is you are asked for the size. So you have to now pull that out of thin air. Yeah, I think that's it. Cool. Unless there's any more feedback, I would just say let's wrap up. Give people time back.
Just small note. iVisitor is such a generic name. I would make it less generic, especially that the
visitor. Yep.
iVisitor. You know, like.
I know.
And the IL, can we change it to something? You know, maybe you can think about something like, let's say.
We had ILDASM before, and then changed it to IL on the previous design review.
Well,
so we could keep that recursion.
I would. Well, we could go CIL. I would just do something to remove the I. Can we do something?
CIL?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that a framework design guideline? You can't use.
I don't. As I said, I don't have a solution to this problem. I may dwell on it overnight. So if I come up with something, you know.
Just that your eye, you go CDI.
But think about it. You know, like maybe we don't
You've
use.
written this library before, you know what you used.
What's it?
You used FX, right? That was your prefix.
I see. Is that what I used? Yeah, maybe FX is better. Let's go with it.
No.
What about KC? It's your initials. Maybe that's better than my initials. I don't know.
Because I had a symbol. Core. Isn't core like
The new thing.
the new nothing?
Open.
I don't mind CIL.
Yeah, I think CIL. All right.
It makes it common. It will be more used.
So the only remaining question that we have is there a playlist of .NET Core design reviews? There is. It's on YouTube. I will send the link on Twitter later. All right, guys. Then thanks for joining us, and then I will upload it later.
Thanks, Simon.